And just to bring that down to where we are today, because this is a sea change. This is not tinkering around the edges. This is a complete rethinking of our future. And people sometimes say to me, how do you plan and manage a hospital today, understanding what's in front of you? Number one, by becoming part of something larger that has the ability through scale and scope to manage everything that the population needs. Today, when you leave here and go back to your jobs, I look at it as pretty straightforward. We have to be the highest quality, most efficient, and best feeling hospital that we possibly can be. And in the future, we have to be exactly the same, because those basic components will help us care for patients in a way that they get what they need, when they need it, where they need it, and they feel good about it. So that's how we have to focus our efforts as we ride through this white water that we're in, and it's permanent.
Susan said it brilliantly. When we talk about value, the way to think about value is quality over quantity. So you do it very well, and you do a lot of it. How can you do that best in a large system? Consolidating services and making sure that we can do things at the lowest cost for the greatest value, for the greatest outcome. Lowest cost, greatest outcome. We can do that. So as an aside, what we should think about is, so how do we make sure that patients want to come to this hospital because we know we can provide good quality, and we know we can probably provide it at a cost-efficient basis, but how do we get people to come? And I want to return to what I think Susan said so brilliantly, which was, you know, that 10 seconds where the patient goes into anesthesia and you put your hand on them, or to make sure that everybody makes eye contact and says hello. What people need to remember most about Beth Israel as they leave it is, boy, they cared about me here. Boy, this is a warm, nice, caring, sensitive place. Because if the only thing we think that will turn that around is new bricks and mortar, if we started today, if we even knew what we wanted in that hospital, which we don't, because healthcare is changing so rapidly, but even if we did, between raising the money, getting the architect's designs, building it, doing all the relocations, it'd be 6, 7 years before we had all that done. What happens in the meantime? What happens in the meantime is people have to want to come here because they say, this is a warm place. These are good people. They really care about me. Okay, let them build a new Tisch hospital. It's got to be irrelevant to us. It's got to be irrelevant. What matters is what's inside, how we care. And we got to show that. We got to know that because they're building a new Tisch hospital, we got to go out of our way to show people how much we care, how kind we are, how sensitive we are. And we go the extra mile for everybody. Susan said it great. You know, it's symbolic. If you touch people for 10 seconds before surgery, it'll make a big difference. But you know what else matters? When you're a nurse and you're a doctor and when you go to the bedside, you don't stand up over patients and talk down to them. You sit down at their bedside and you meet them in the eye. And when you're a housekeeper, at the end of the day, you say, is there anything else I left out? And you're not afraid even to our patients to share something about yourself, to be really human. Oh, my kids, oh, they're impossible. You know, it just makes you real. And to say, this is a warm place. That's what we've got to win.
Hi. Can you fill us in on what investments and improvements you are planning for the next 2 years?
So I think the most important investment that we're looking at is what I just spoke to you about, which is really going through the hospital and doing what I call a refresh. When I look at there are too many emails in this organization. Does anyone agree with me? All right. Whoever figures that out, come and talk to me. You're going to be very popular. But when I read the emails of the tracers that we're doing in preparation for Joint Commission, and when I walk around the hospital, which many of you know I do, I think I was scaring people on Tuesday evening. I was walking through Fierman Hall, starting on the top, and, people just kind of shut down. They were shocked. I said, got to get to know Fierman, right? There are very basic maintenance things that we have to do to make the hospital look better. It will still be an old hospital. I am looking to figure out how to get the pneumatic tube working so people don't have to bring stuff places, that the stuff gets moved without people. And as soon as people leave a floor and go somewhere, I don't know, they may stop at the side of the hall and, talk to one of their friends for 5 minutes. Run that across thousands of people every single day, every single month, every single year. You want to talk about efficiency? Those are people who could be taking care of patients. So it really, in my mind, is the very basic infrastructure and refresh of the hospital. Many of us have lived in old houses. They're not perfect, right? At all. But if they have a fresh coat of paint and we take care of the basic maintenance, they're fine. And as Dr. Davis said, we need a baseline that our patients deserve that, and the hospital needs it, and you deserve that for your work environment. But beyond that, we can knock any other hospital off the playing field if patients experience the type of care that we can provide them. And by the way, we either make or lose millions of dollars a year based on patient experience scores. Now there's money attached to it, and every bit of money that we bring into the organization allows us to invest in the future. And that's really the way that it works.
Here's a scary thing. A lot of the investments you won't see. When the CMS people came by for their Title 18 survey, they found problems in sterile supply. We got to fix it. We know there are issues in the boilers. There are all kinds of things that we've got to take care of that we're not going to see right away. But you know what the biggest investment is going to be? It's going to be in people. It's going to be in bringing in a lot of physicians. And maybe Dennis wants to comment about that.
We're in recruitment mode, and the school is working hand in glove with Susan and other leaders here to bring on new faculty, physicians in almost every area, whether it's thoracic surgery, in the brain sciences, in general surgery, across the specialties in medicine. We know we got to increase volume coming into the ambulatory clinics and the hospital here. And so we're working together in terms of the school and Beth Israel to essentially rebuild a lot of the services here so the volume goes up. And so we're meeting every week, and mainly what we talk about is what kind of recruitments can the school help BI with to get top people to come on one hand. And also we talk a lot about what's the morale like here at BI with the physicians, what's important to them. And so we're working together on getting the word out, hearing what concerns people might have to make sure that our best doctors, our best staff are committed to BI, want to stay at BI, and work with us as we grow together and compete with the other top hospitals in the region. I should add one thing from my own personal experience. So I spent 23 years at Yale, and there are two major hospitals in New Haven. There's Yale New Haven Hospital, and there's the Hospital of St. Raphael's. And patients like to go to Hospital of St. Raphael's more than Yale New Haven Hospital. And the major reason was that the environment at St. Raphael's, from every staff person to the nurses to the physicians, was much warmer. You know, the quality of care was equal, but the environment in which the care was given was much better at St. Raphael's. And maybe Yale learned something because they took over St. Raphael's. So now it's one integrated system. So I also want to emphasize the importance of having high morale and letting that be transmitted to your patients so they know this is the place to come.
And there's one thing that I'd like to add to that, that maybe no one in the room is going to put on the table, so you're kind of getting used to me. I'm the person who's going to put it there. We do have some physicians who are leaving us. And I've been through mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, and new organizations for the last 20 years of my career before joining this organization. So I've been in that movie, okay? So here's what I'll say to you. We're at 6 months from the beginning of the merger. This is the exact point in time where certain people will make a decision to leave because the merger took place. They're not sure what it means. They have some conversations. No, they decide they're not going to do anything. Then they start thinking about doing something, and they negotiate something, and they leave. And I know what it's like to have an offer put in front of you that is something that you feel is better for you as an individual. That's why I'm here. Wasn't looking for the offer. It's his fault. Just saying. Having said that, leaving an organization because there's change taking place is not necessarily the smartest thing to do. And I've had that conversation with people in saying, you're leaving before you know what the future looks like. And if you look at the rest of the world of healthcare and medicine today, you may make a decision to go somewhere stable. Not sure what that means. Because anywhere that looks stable today, I'm willing to lay serious dollars, is the next place that's going to look unstable a year from now because change is coming through organizations. So it is hard to hear someone that you know and have worked with for years is making a decision to leave. Those are individual decisions. And I'll stand by the fact, and I've said this right to the people, and you know, it isn't like they know me. It's like I have a 15-year relationship with them. But I've told people I think they're making a mistake because they're not really allowing themselves to see where we're going. The reason for us talking to you today is for you to be able to start to see where we're going. And we want all of the talent in this organization to stay right where it is. And even though new relationships are rocky, I said this morning, I come from a large family of all boys. That was God's training for me for my work. It was a rough and tumble. But I also come from a step family. And I know how hard it is in the beginning days of having a step family. It's really weird. You don't know each other. The families are different. You can make jokes with your own family that the other family kind of looks at like, what's wrong with these people? That's where we are today. We're coming together. And it can be uncomfortable and it can be bumpy, but we're starting to see where we're going and the framework is there. So that's what you have to think about.
And I think related to the way we're going to go forward together and whether some people leave or stay is that we're working together as a team, that BI is not going to be an isolated hospital within the system. None of the hospitals are isolated. We have meetings every week where all the hospital presidents come together and we talk about how we're going to do things together, where the Center of Excellence is going to be, where do we recruit. Decisions are being made as a team, and that's where our strength is, as you've heard, going forward, being a large healthcare system. So our hope is that the best staff, the best doctors buy into that model, that we're going to make decisions as a team, we're going to work together as a team, we're going to be stronger as a team. But in some cases, that means a little less autonomy in making decisions without getting input and getting a consensus approach to decision making.
So I have a comment about this. How many people in the room are Knick fans? Come on. Just me and Dennis? All right. So did any of the Knick fans know what Phil Jackson said yesterday about Carmelo Anthony? Okay. So for those who don't, here's what he said. He said, no, but besides that, he said, I really hope that Carmelo Anthony stays. And if he does, thank God and we'll move forward. And then he said, and if Carmelo Anthony leaves, thank God and we'll move forward. And we're going to move forward. And we're going to thank God and we're going to move forward.
Perfect.
Yeah, how you brought up morale, and it's seems like morale's been fine, but I've heard some rumors about strike from 1199. Is there
Okay.
anything we can do to prevent these
Whoa,
things?
whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah,
Hold on, hold on. Let's say in the 10 years that I've worked as a CEO, we've had only a great relationship with SEIU 1199. The first week I was on the job, and Dennis Rivera was still then the head before George, I went to visit Dennis, and he looked at me and he said, "You know, you got the most impossible job in the state. I don't think your hospital will be alive in 2 years." But we stayed in contact, and about a year ago, he had reason to have his family in our hospital because his preferred hospital is Mount Sinai. And he said, "You know, this is just incredible. This is such a great hospital." And we talked about how that all happened because we had such a good relationship and we were able to work together with 1199. 1199 SEIU has been a great partner for us in everything we've done in the last 10 years, and we've added a great number of jobs because we've been successful, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're aligned together. I have had no communications with George Gresham or anybody else that would suggest that we have to think about strikes. It's just the last thing on everybody's mind. What we know we've got is a very difficult situation as we negotiate forward, and that's because the hospitals like Mount Sinai and Beth Israel, particularly Beth Israel, because nurses here are in SEIU, pay a very large percentage of their benefits that cross-subsidize the for-profit nursing homes benefit funds. So we're not just paying the benefit funds for our employees, we're cross-subsidizing the lower benefit levels that are paid by Walgreens and the for-profit nursing homes who wouldn't pay our levels. And SEIU realizes that that is not sustainable. So we're going forward trying to work this out in a way that everybody wins and those who need to pay. But I'm optimistic about how that's going to work out. And I think what we must realize is that we are not each other's enemies. If we look at who's the enemy, start backwards with the response to the question about $2.1 billion coming out of our hospital system over the next 10 years. And that's just the Medicare budget. Think about the states and the Medicaid budget. Think about the commercial insurers. Every one of the payers, those are the people who have an antagonistic relationship with us. It's not us. And the sooner we realize that we are not the enemy, but the enemy's out there, and we've got to be together and make sure that those payers pay us what our costs are, the better off we're going to be.
And I have met with the local leadership in coming into my position. I've actually had wonderful meetings with them. And my message to them about what I'm looking for our employees is exactly what I said to you today. We own the future of the hospital. No one gives that away. We own it. And they got that because we need to move forward together successfully in order to appreciate that future. And that's not a complicated message, and I'm not a complicated message person. So they really heard it very clearly. If the morale in the hospital isn't what you think it should be, take care of it. Everyone who's here today is an ambassador to all of the other employees who aren't here in bringing this message forward on where we're going. Because people start talking about negative things in the absence of information. There's a lot of information here today, and we're going to continue to bring that information forward. Other questions?
Hi, Susan. I'm Darshelle from Cardiology. How are you?
Good.
So it's been 73 days since your appointment.
Wow.
and-
Is there a clock somewhere that you haven't shown me? Is it moving forward or backwards?
you mentioned, well, it's been mentioned about, not being an isolated hospital and that change is coming through the organization. During this transition period, how are you going to ensure that the mission and the vision remains consistent within the framework itself?
So I hope we've touched on some of those points this morning. The mission of the hospital doesn't change. The way we fulfill that mission and the way we operate the hospital, there will be changes. And I'll give you an example as a cardiac. Are you a nurse?
No, I'm the fellowship coordinator.
Okay. So we had our first meeting, one of my first big town hall meetings here with the cardiologists. How are we going to do business differently? Let's look back for a minute. Then you're going to tell me later about that clock thing. So when I was first working in cardiovascular care, open heart surgery patients were in the hospital for 6 weeks. They were in an intensive care unit for a week, intubated, sedated, not moving. And by the way, I don't really remember a lot of nutrition being involved, okay? Today they're in the hospital in uncomplicated bypass patients in the hospital for about 4.5, 5 days. We provide much better care. We didn't know that back then. We thought we were providing state-of-the-art care, and actually at that point in time we were. We are going to change the way we do things because the world around us is changing. The technology is changing. The ability to care for patients in their home is changing. There are many things that will be different. And the most important thing to me is that we maintain the mission, but we have to maintain the bottom line in order to maintain the mission, because we've seen some very bad stories about places that didn't figure that out, haven't we? We're not going to be one of those places. And it requires senior leadership, understanding the mission and the vision, but then it has to transcend all the way through the organization so everyone is supporting it. And that is the plan. Did I answer your question? Okay. Other questions this morning? You're welcome. Thank you.
I want to thank Susan for coming here. She is an extraordinary person. We are very, very fortunate that she's here. And to speak a little bit about leadership, I want everybody to understand that when she speaks for me. She is totally empowered by me and Dennis. When you speak to Susan, you're speaking to all of us.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I am actually one of the resident representatives here, part of the House Staff Council for 2 years. I'm part of the psychiatry department. My name is Olga Libu. And one of the questions that I have, and I brought up with you at the former town hall meetings, is sort of, as we all know, we are sort of trying to get a union here, and what's sort of been in the way, and why have we been referred to as students and not employees?
So I'm gonna take your question in a specific fashion, and then we can talk about it offline. In my past life, and I've run a hospital before, one of the things that was very important to me, because it helped me understand the hospital at a different level, and every group you speak to in the hospital has a different vantage point, has always been to meet with the house staff and the residents, fellows, about the hospital, to talk about the future of the hospital, and also to hear how you see the hospital and what are things I need to know to make it better. And that's not something new for me. Usually I do lunches or breakfasts quarterly, sometimes with the program director, sometimes without. I actually had the opportunity to meet with the incoming chief residents for surgery several weeks ago with Dr. Lightman, because he sent out an email with their pictures announcing them. And I thought, I got to meet this crowd. And it was a very good meeting for me, and I think it was a good meeting for them. So what I would say to you is, if you are interested in discussing issues in the hospital, please come and speak to me. I am very open to having that discussion, as I am with every other group in the hospital. I think that openness brings information to me that helps me decide and prioritize the things that I need to do in the hospital and for the people who work here.
What I would add is, no matter what the outcome is of whether the residents unionize here or not, and that's a long debate of what's best for training and so forth, we're still going to be committed to training you and for you to become the best physicians that you possibly can.
I think we have time for one more question.
I just want to know what's happening with nursing.
I can't.
Nursing. What are your plans for nursing?
What are your plans for nursing? I'm starting to meet with groups of nurses, and as I said, I had the opportunity to meet with the nursing supervisors yesterday evening and this morning. I believe I'm the first nurse to have run this organization. And for those of you who have seen my business card, the only initials that are on it, and I have other advanced degrees, are RN, because that's the core of who I am. So I am an extremely strong advocate of nursing, because nurses and our colleagues who are PCAs have more contact with our patients than anyone else in the hospital. You are at the bedside. So that's kind of a broad statement, my plan for nursing. What would I love to see in our future? I would love to see us get magnet status, because it speaks to a level of professionalism and commitment, and I've found that it means a great deal to the nursing staff, and it helps us recruit nurses, and it helps us retain nurses. And those are things that are very important. Did you have anything more specific in the question?
It's just I'm a little concerned because I have seen the doctors leave, and I'm concerned about people like me who've been here for a very long time and are a little high paying, and we've been here for a long time.
Never say you're high paid in front of him, ever. Erase that. Sure. So you know what? Everyone's a change agent that I've ever met in my life. I love change. Change is great. I embrace change. Change is awesome, except for one kind of change, the change that affects them directly. They're all about change going to everybody else. I see a wonderful nursing staff in this organization, and it's extraordinarily encouraging to me, and you should know that. And we will build on that. There is no substitute for excellent nurses within a healthcare organization. There really isn't. It's a huge foundation to how patients experience care. So don't worry, all right? And we'll keep talking. And tell your colleagues, don't worry. We are going to move forward in a very positive direction. In fact, you know what? I would say, based on the discussion that we just had over the last hour, I can absolutely feel that happening. Can you feel it happening? So we're good. All right. Thank you so much.